And God has set a table before you, and he chooses to bless you right in the presence of your enemies. He has chosen to bless you right in the presence of your enemy. And isn't it good to know that when you've gone through and you learn from life through the experiences that you have, that it's how you handle the middle of your life that determines your end, and not merely how your life began. You don't choose the way that you were born, but you do determine how you die. And some folks that are in this room right now, and some folks that are watching by television and by internet, you were a piece of work growing up. In your teenage years, your attitude, just your temperament, you know, your energy level, boy, your mouth. And if you looked at how you got started, that does not have to determine how you end. They are the choices that you make in the middle of your life that determine your end. And I'm so glad that God has been merciful to allow us to get to a place when you get around 30 years old, your desires change. And sometimes you get around that age, you know, you realize that the stuff that your mom and dad had told you when you thought they were crazy and overbearing, and now you understand, because now you're doing some of the same thing that they might have done to you, you're doing it to your children. And it's amazing how God, in his infinite wisdom and his divine grace for us, allows us to make decisions in the middle of our life that will determine our end. Aren't you glad that God's not going to judge you based on the stupid thing that you did in the first 25 years of your life? I mean, that is shouting news. I mean, some of y'all did some wild, crazy, really edgy stuff. Your rebellion and all of that. And yet, had God let what you did in the first 25 years of your life determine how you end? But I'm so glad that God caught us in the back of our collars and arrested us and changed our lives. And in the middle years, my God, in the second third of your life, that it impacts the final third of your life, you have three different phases of life. The first third is your learning stage. The second third is your earning stage. Your third stage is your returning stage. Are you listening? And so I'm so glad that even when we were in the learning stage and we were rebellious students, that God allows something to transpire in us during the earning stage that impacts our returning stage. And maybe it was the rebellion that we did in the learning stage that endows us in the returning stage to be able to recognize other young folks that are just like we were. To be able to come and to speak with specificity into their life, because I understand your feelings and your attitude, and you feel like you're invincible and that you know it all, and that you got a right to be able to live your own expression of who you think you are. And it gives us an ability with the precision of a surgeon to come and to take our tongue and to speak words of life that will root out a seed of rebellion, which is as the sin of witchcraft operating in the lives of individuals. I'm so glad that God gives us an opportunity in the middle of life to determine the end of your life. Aren't you glad about that? What an awesome God we serve. We just bless him and honor him and love him. But I caution you in this area that sometimes wisdom comes through somebody that you don't like. So recognize it from whichever source that God chooses to send it. Because God can send wisdom to you through a young child who can barely talk. Recognize this is God without judging the person. God might use one of the most unlikely people in the world to speak the wisdom of God to you. I learn wisdom from everybody that I meet. I'm looking because I'm saying that there's a deposit of wisdom in this person's life, and I just want to recognize that this is a gift from God. This has nothing to do with this 2-year-old child who doesn't even know what they said to me. I recognize this is the voice of God. I've asked God for wisdom, and God is sending it through a babe. Are you listening? God can send it through somebody that you don't even like. He can send it through your former boss. He can send it through an ex-wife, an ex-husband, an ex-boyfriend, an ex-girlfriend. God can send them wisdom. They get mad with you, and then they're an ex, and then they're telling you about yourself.